as many folks did, traumatized by an event in my life. I came also as a recovering Catholic. I was baptized, and I went to Sunday school, and even as I remember sitting there as a little 9-year-old boy, I could not fathom and understand why there were so many people burning in hell. So many people that were, Indians and Eskimos and all these different people. So it didn't make sense to me. And that went on to be other traumas as well. And so when my father passed, he's devout Catholic, he wanted a mass. And of course, I'm like, well, of course. This is what we do. Dad wants a mass, he's going to have one. So there was a little bit of dread in myself and this whole process to then go to a mass on top of everything. But that was my epiphany. When I went to that mass, and I had just started my spiritual path, and I was kind of starting to break open in a lot of different ways. When I was there at my father's funeral and the father began the mass and was speaking, I had never heard it before that way. I heard it this way, metaphysically. All of a sudden, there were nuggets of truth in everything he was saying. Sure, some of the terms and some of the different little rituals and dogmas and things I didn't know how to respond back, I couldn't remember, or some things I didn't necessarily agree with, but all of those just went right on by. And the nuggets of truth that he spoke stayed with me, resonated with me. I felt them right here. I was absolutely like, oh my God, it's been there the whole time. And now I can freely go I went to a Hindu service the other day. I can go to a Catholic Mass, the First Baptist Church down on 12th Street. I love going to all of these things because, oh my God, they're all true. I like the saying, when looking for greener pastures, it's not new landscape you need, it's new eyes. And so I totally am just absolutely really enjoying this now. And the theology is no longer an issue because I'm not taking issue with it. I can pull out the nuggets of truth that I need. This is a way for me that I have begun to cultivate divine perception. So let's take this in now and apply this to our own lives. What's going on? What are you dealing with? What's happening in your world, in your life? Interesting when we now take it in and it becomes personal and we start thinking about, maybe it's money issues, maybe it's family issues, maybe it's national issues, political issues. When we start taking this in, all of a sudden, that snowflake seems to be falling in the wrong place and it becomes maybe even uncomfortable, maybe even painful to some degree. There's another little saying, and this is actually not so much a saying as it is just a quote from Eckhart Tolle, and he says that we draw to us every experience our soul needs to wake up. Now that is radical. When you think about it, when you really embody or metabolize that for a second, we draw to us every experience we need for our soul's awakening. I have friends. I have a friend. His name Kenny, and he goes through jobs. Oh my gosh, does he go through jobs? Like we go through socks. New job, this. I'm like, hey, Kenny, where are you at this time? Well, I'm working for a temp agency, and, it's like, I'm doing this job, this time. And he just goes through them. And so, he still, I don't think, can see it. But I think that for me, one of the things I spoke with Kenny about, I says, Kenny, I love you dearly. And one of the things I'm thinking here is because he's so unhappy because every time he leaves a job, it's a failure. It's like, it's like Edison said, I didn't fail 2,000 times. I just know 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb. it's like, these aren't really failures, Kitty. I don't see them as failures. What I see them as is little lessons. Everyone is teaching you something, and what I think it's teaching you is that you're an entrepreneur. You are self-employed. You're a man that needs to work for yourself, or at least try this out. Try this path, 'cause that's the one path he hasn't tried. He's tried all the jobs. There's none left. He's worked everywhere. So the one job left that he hasn't tried is working for himself. And so he took up his love of photography, and now he's doing school musicals. He's kind of found a niche because he does really good dark, low light photography. And so that's this new way of seeing things. So where in your life are these things coming up? What's going on in your life? Is there anything going on in your life right now that is bad? If there's a charge, if there's something going on, this is the place where our work begins. I love the old story, the old Taoist story about the farmer and the stallion. And the farmer has this beautiful stallion, and one day the stallion runs away, and all the neighbors come together and like, oh, that's absolutely terrible. And he's like, well, I don't know about that, because he came back about 20 minutes ago and brought 5 mares with him. And they're like, oh, that's great. And he's like, well, I don't know, because just now my son was trying to break one of the mares, and he got bucked off and broke his leg. Oh, no, that's terrible. And he's like, well, I don't know, because the army's coming through tonight, and they're going to conscript all the young men, but they're not going to take a boy with a broken leg. So obviously we could go on all day, right? How do we know what's bad? When we cultivate divine perception, we see what is, and hopefully we can see just what is, until all the stories start to bubble up, and we attach stories as to why that is the way that is, and this is what this means now, and I have to take action, instead of going back to, wow, I'm drawing this experience to awaken to something. This experience is the perfect experience I need to have right now. And learning through cultivating a divine perception. When we apply this to the political situation, I have to admit, I've struggled. I went through all the stages. I went through denial, disbelief. I went through grief. I went through anger. And I went through a whole bunch of different phases, only to come back to, it's like, okay, now wait a second, Victor. What are you attaching to all this? What are the stories that you're doing to this? What is yours to do in all of this? And so there are a lot of people that think that this is really just another step in a much larger awakening for a lot of folks. And so it does mean for me a little bit more of an action step. Not because there's someone who's wrong, not because there's someone who's done something terrible, not because there's an enemy and there's an us and a them, because I'm being called to do more social action. And a lot of people are feeling this. Not out of anger and hatred, but because this is what needs to be done. This is what's being called forth. And so this could ultimately have a pretty incredible effect down the long run. Who knows? Who knows? So I want to, in the third and final part of my talk this morning, I want to take us into an action step. And that is a kind of a meditation, so to speak. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, of course, to position yourself and make yourself comfortable and set anything down if you need to. And I'm going to ask you to go inside. Let's go in deep. Maybe perhaps close your eyes if you need to. And let my words be your words as we just kind of move through, if you will allow me, a little practice. It's going to be slightly different than the usual, and we will end with just some silent time. But as we go into this, what I'd like you to do is take perhaps a grounding breath, just a deep, relaxing, centering breath. And as you're relaxing your face and your neck and your shoulder muscles and kind of sinking into your chair for a moment, sinking into this particular moment, I'm going to ask you to picture not the face, but the full body of a person that is challenging to you in your life these days, recently. Perhaps a coworker, perhaps a family member, perhaps a political figure, perhaps it is a celebrity of some sort, someone that is bringing stuff up for you, making your life a little bit more challenging, perhaps a little inner battle. Bring up the full body, not just the face of this person. Now, as you have this full body person in your mind, I want you to really look at this person for a moment. I want you to look at them long enough that they become a shaft of brilliant white light. Just look at this person that you're having some very difficult dealings with, hard time understanding, hard time loving. And I want you to look at them closely and deeply, long enough that they turn into a brilliant white shaft of light. And now, as we continue, I would like for you to picture in your mind a friend, perhaps a close relative, someone that you love, full body, not just the face. And I want you to picture that person, and I want you to look at them closely, and look at them long enough that they turn into a bright white shaft of warm glowing light. It's the same light. And then as we move to the third step, I want you to picture yourself. I want you to imagine for a moment standing in front of a mirror and seeing a full body picture of yourself. And I want you to look at yourself closely and look at yourself long enough that you eventually turn into a brilliant, white, warm, glowing, loving shaft of light. I have a body, but that's not who I am. I have emotions, but they are not who I am. I have thoughts, but they are not who I am. It is this beautiful, brilliant, glowing shaft of light that is our true divine essence. It is within every single sentient being. So as we take a deep, grounding breath, let us take that into the silence for just a moment. Thoughts will come, let them go, let them just fly by like birds, and just stay grounded and centered in the warmth of that vast light.